Welcome to the Matty B Files. This is, of course, episode 96, DABWM, an acronym. I love awkward acronyms. DABWM, more consonants the better, I say in an acronym. DABWM 13, drink a beer with me. Titled, Congrats, you have social credit. Social credit, it's something that's being rolled out either purposefully or in a decentralized manner. And I'm going to get into this by talking about how we are being monitored. And this isn't a conspiratorial approach. I've done some research. I work in tech. I work in tech in Tokyo. And if anybody who I work with or who is paying my paychecks, I'm not going to disclose any confidential information or anything. It's today's podcast is based on currently available information anywhere on YouTube or on the internet. So you could Google search pretty much everything I'm going to say today and find a publicly available source to hopefully confirm it. If you find something that denies it, please contact me. Just Matty B Files. Put it in there. I'm thinking about changing the name for Matty B Files. Matty B is a name that I've had as like a stage name. I'm moving on a bit in my life recently, so I might just change it to Tokyo Field Reports with Matt Bigelow. I don't know. That sounds more like I can open up the gates a little bit for topics. But today's topic is the idea of social credit. Oh, by the way, I have helping me riding shotgun with me in this podcast is a rogue beer called Straight Outta Newport, Oregon. It's a West Coast India Pale Ale brewed in the Oregon coast. Whoa, it's quite strong, 8.7% by alcoholic volume, so I got to be a little bit careful in the way I approach this beverage. It's delicious. If you're interested, you can go to www.matthewpmbigelow.com too. See this podcast. It's actually the best place to get the podcast for the highest quality. I don't know where you're getting this podcast from, but definitely my own website is the best way for the best quality, but iTunes is probably the easiest way for reasonable quality. I mean quality of audio. It depends where you're downloading it from. So anyways, we have this social credit system. In the United States, it's being built up in a rather haphazard way. And in China, it's being built up in a very purposeful way. So social credit, in my mind, is either focusing on the social aspect of your online activity or the credit-based. By credit, I mean financial-based opportunities that your online activities is contributing. In the United States at the current moment, we have a rather strange brewing affair regarding censorship and what is considered to be socially acceptable by Twitter mob or what is considered to be socially acceptable by mainstream media. So I have some notes here, and I'll go through them and expand on them as I go. And again, you can get this information. You can search this. Everything I'm doing is totally searchable, and I'm not trying to lambaste social justice warriors, or I'm not trying to go into this large scale commentary against the Chinese government. I'm honestly trying to relay what I understand is in the pipeline as somebody who works in tech, somebody who studies these societal things 20, 30 hours a week, and who has some perspective and standing, I could say, into the near future of where our smartphones are going to take us. And it's up to the people listening to decide how they will incorporate the near future into their lives. In my opinion, of course, you go out, like I was out today. I went out to Mitsuya's in Minami Asagaya, and I had a nice conversation. I ran into Ponzi, who is a guitarist and musician in Tokyo. He's opening up a new Italian restaurant that's going to feature live music and Koenji. All of this stuff continues as normal. But as you know, once you go on through life, things get introduced and suddenly they're everywhere. We could even consider LED lights like this kind of thing. Like 20 years ago, we didn't have LED lights. Now LED lights are in every fucking thing you buy. Power lines. The network of power lines in the city is downright incredible. The fact that there's fiber optic cables and telephone wires and connecting to base stations, beaming information into space, like this is really incredible. But 50 years ago, it was a totally different system. So as we exist increasingly in a technological society, we can expect, of course, more technological infrastructure to be introduced into our lives. But sometimes we get into these stages where, for example, the iPhone, the 3G, I remember trying to stream radio on 3G. I would get 20 minutes and my battery would be down 50%, and the radio frequency wouldn't get through a simple wall or something like that. Now, the other day I was in the subway in Tokyo, and between stations in the subway, I was trying to buy some music on iTunes. My credit card information was out of date. I updated my credit card information and downloaded an entire Chris Stapleton album between two subway stations in Tokyo. And before the doors opened at the next station, I was playing the music. That is incredible. And it's country music. Like this is traditional music. So there's the technology is progressing at an amazing level. The next level, 5G, is going to incorporate things on an industrial scale. On an industrial scale that is going to affect us in a social manner. It's quite a complex topic. So let's see. I'll come in with a backgrounder here regarding the backgrounder. So social media, like Facebook. I used to do BBSs and I used to do internet forums, and social media more or less replaced it. We had MySpace, which gave a lot of power to the individual, and then Facebook kind of came in with an easier to use system, and you could upload your photos and share them more easily with more people. So a lot of people joined social media at first to do self-promotion for their art, for their music, and things like that. And as more people joined, more back-end people were introduced into the social media network via engineers, and American ones introduced a lot of algorithms, and then they bought lots of sales. I think if you remember, Groupon was one of the first major advertising companies that was purchased by Google for like $1 billion or something like that, and that was back in 2008, 2009. Back when all those stupid reports from the media were saying, hey, the internet is a lot like a brain. If you designed a brain and you designed the what? Anyways, and then with the algorithms came the required need to fund them. So a lot of the social media companies increased their sales advertising, and eventually it got to the point where the person that had joined social media to try to garner attention to their own art became the customer for the social media platform. So Twitter, you used to, according to many reports, if you had like 30,000 followers, you could reach your 30,000 followers pretty much with every tweet. However, now with the increased usage of algorithms based on search content or how you word yourself, that will either get stymied or boosted depending on what kind of values you're promoting according to the algorithms and the rather social justice warrior minded people inside the ranks of these companies. And I don't think that within these social media companies, everyone is a social justice warrior. I do, however, believe that social justice warriors will have more proclivity to take action to either stymie or promote certain trends based on the word, the verbage, the verbology, the verbiage of the post. Okay, so now we're at the point a few years after social media gathers everyone in the world. Not everyone, but you know what I mean. Now we have tweaking the algorithms, and more, what's happening to get into the social credit system is a few years ago, based on what you posted on Twitter or on social media, it would be reported as fact. So this is going back to BBS, my teens in the mid 90s, or to forums where you could have an anonymous handle and debate people pretty openly. Now, anything you kind of said was being reported as your true opinion of the time. So there was a leap that was made, I would say, the early 2000s and then ramped up since then. Now we're 2018, where what you say on social media is taken to be what you actually factually believe instead of classical internet usage, which was trolling, which was just thinking out loud to see if you could get a response and reach a conclusion. It kind of shifted into this, you posted this, that means that's your conclusion. That means that's what you think, and that means we can punish you for that post. Well, that's interesting. I didn't realize that was the new way of using the internet. Okay, luckily I'm a very low profile individual, and I rely on not social media to do what I do. I play occasional music in cafes and bars in Tokyo and live houses, as well as release podcasts, which people don't really take seriously anyways for the time being. Thank God. I take them very seriously, by the way. So we got these more and more of these social media platforms being turned into almost litigation. Like, you said this 3 years ago, that means you think it today, and therefore we're going to punish you. We're going to take your money. We're going to take your job. This is a social credit system, and it's an unofficial one where, based on your online performance, people can evaluate it and then assign you a score, a social score. In America, it's very much a social score, where you said A, and then that means it's good. You said B, that means it could be better. You said C, that means you're a Nazi and you need to go. Get out of here. You're fired. And we will remember this tweet for the rest of your life. It's a very strange phenomenon. China is developing a social credit system as well. And I'm not playing favorites here. I'm a Canadian living in Japan. Again, as I mentioned earlier, we can still go out and have a beer and relax and shit like that. But these social credit systems are in the pipe. People say pike. I prefer pipe. Are in the pipe, and they're coming, and they're already surrounding us. Now, with the addition of the tech companies in Silicon Valley are really adopting left-wing policies and conservatives are being left out of the mix because everyone still thinks of a conservative as George W. Bush bombing the shit out of Iraq. I mean, I think a lot of conservatives have moved on, and they are ready to stop being like George W. Bush. So there's this massive influx of social justice warrior type people being included into the Googles and the Twitters and all of that. And in fact, to get a job at Google, it's pretty much you have to go through social justice warrior training to prove that you're not some Nazi prick, even though Nazis don't really exist. So the level of left-wing mentality being implemented into into social media is reaching such a level that it's going to start affecting the way the average person's social credit score is going to be evaluated. For example, many of the engineers are at Twitter and Google, they have these diversity programs, which I disagree with. I frankly disagree with them. It should be by your merit. If you are a very talented Indian person, it doesn't matter. You get in. But increasing your diversity quotas promotes the idea, the politicization of diversity within the infrastructure of your company. So when all of these Silicon Valley companies start introducing diversity programs into their systems, well, then it's based on, okay, oppression, and I'm this, and I'm this, and I'm this, and I'm this, therefore I should get X job. Not based on your merit, even though you might be completely qualified for the job based on your merit, but it introduces this idea where your identity is more important than your merit. Or you can use your identity to advance yourself into a company rather than only relying on your merit. So it opens the door for people to abuse the system. And now that Twitter and YouTube and all these other Silicon Valley companies are introducing content management, and we will monitor for extremist activity and punish those who punish those who violate our terms. Well, now all of a sudden you can have a swath of immigrant, non-loyal to your country people. This sounds terrible, by the way, and I know it does, but it creates a precedent, and they can find conservative values in the country that they consider to be oppressive to their own country. And frankly, I'm pretty sure that certainly that Western countries have oppressed other Asian countries around the world or Arab countries around the world, and they can kind of come back and still have very good technical expertise, use the social justice warrior mentality to infiltrate their merit ideas into the system so as to, in a way, usurp what they perceive to be countries with colonial values, when a lot of the times we've moved on past colonialism, but the hangover remains in those countries, and now the hangover, the ideological hangover, gets imported back into into Western countries via these engineers, and they create what is essentially a social credit system by reinforcing certain values that people post online. And you can imagine a night shift of rogues, for example, that decide to target certain voices on the platform and flag them for what could be considered, by their own terms of values, not contrarian, but horrible behavior that's worth censoring. And so somebody posts something, it's a joke, and then it gets considered, it gets passed through Snopes, and of course Snopes says that never happened, then that channel can therefore be silenced. which is happening at the moment. YouTube tried to create all of these algorithms that would properly monitor hate speech and violence on YouTube, failed miserably. I wonder why. You have a bunch of 20-year-olds trying to write algorithms for the world. Give me a fucking break. Have these people even waded through most of the world to understand the nuance of vocabulary that goes on from nation to nation? And they're trying to perfect the world through their own algorithms, and then there these biases get transferred into their algorithms, and they fail because those people are not prepared to create a series of numbers that can dictate the way people think and evaluate them based on that. And so when people post these jokes onto social media, they get fired from their jobs. It's a failed system. It's not, is it failed? It's failed for some, and it's only encouraging in recent weeks. This is the beginning of March 2018. What I think is happening is a lot of these social justice warrior engineers they realize that they're a cog in the machine, and they haven't spent a lot of their time fostering an individual spiritual core. And they realize that now they have a chance to strike back against people that do have a rather strong spiritual core. I think I do. I made the choice to pursue truth, or to reject bullshit, or to explore my fantasies regarding, like, I don't really get into it anymore, but I went through a time where I was so fascinated by ghosts and UFOs and the unexplained, and I don't really spend a lot of time on my life. I don't spend any time on my life right now about that, but I got it out of my system, and I didn't do it in a way that affected others. But I think a lot of these people they become teachers, and teachers really, in my opinion, I'm a teacher. I just try to help the students do better at the thing that they want to do. I work in tech. I teach in tech, and some of the people that attend the classes they can point to a part of the International Space Station and say, I coded some of the technology in there. Or they say, oh, I'm a blockchain engineer. And they are. I'm very humbled by these people's intellectual pursuits. And the last thing I want to do is waste their time with social justice warrior garbage when they're taking their time from developing, the next level of technology. They come to me and I try to tell them about why diversity is underrepresented in Japan. I wouldn't keep a job that way in the private sector. When I don't want to teach about that, I want to help them. I want to say, okay, this is your industry. Okay, I'm going to research this, and I'm going to get you people from those industries, and I'm going to play them on YouTube, and I'm gonna tweak the algorithm so that for you, we can study the people that you're going to meet in the future and the types of topics that are being raised at the current moment. Sometimes we'll watch live feeds of SpaceX launches and stuff like that. It's really cool. Actually, it helps. I hope it helps them. I'm not trying to ideologically decide what they should or should not be thinking. So, I'm not trying to piggyback a political message into the class. I'm trying to do the opposite. So what I think is happening is in America, and in a lot of Western societies, the social credit system is being designed so that it monitors you for when you say something that should not be rewarded on a social merit, either immigration or sort of off-colored humor. And when you do mention that, you lose your job or you get arrested or you get detracted. It's a PC message being piggybacked by bored adults trying to be superheroes because they didn't make important spiritual decisions, so they kind of want to make up for it. They want to finger wag the rest of society. Recently at the World Mobile Conference 2018, there's a lot of technology being introduced at these things, and generally speaking, I don't really pay much attention to them, but this year was a little bit different. Some of the reasons being is the inclusion of smartphones more and more into our lives. Before I get onto the smartphone, I would just like to say that recently BMW, in a tie-up with South Korea Telecom, successfully did a 5G connected car test where the 5G connected car reached speeds of about 150 kilometers per hour and was connected to a 5G network, ultra low latency, less than 0.001 second latency between the car and the 5G network going 150 kilometers an hour, and streaming that data at 2.5 gigabits per second. I'll say that again. It's like having 2.5 gigabits per second streaming into your car going 150 kilometers an hour. And inside the car, they had 2 cameras. Outside the car, they had 2 cameras. These cameras were streaming live to screens where the public could watch. And then the cars were equipped with machine learning and image identification, so they could probably see things like other cars and trees or curves in the road or lines and things like that, lines in the road. That's pretty impressive technology. I am allowed to have 20 gigabytes of data streamed from my phone every month before I incur extra charges. In that BMW car, I would be allowed to stream that data for about 5 seconds, 10 seconds. There you go. That's the level of technology that's being introduced, and that's the level of social credit that's being introduced with it. There is also, approved by the FDA last year in America, a digital pill. You take this pill. It has a sensor in it, a sensor composed of copper and magnesium. And it goes into, and you wear like a sensor over your chest or around your arm. And the pill goes down into your stomach. And when the stomach acid reacts with the copper and magnesium, it gives enough power to trigger a sensor. And the sensor will transmit the time and the type of medication or a few different things to the pad that you have strapped to your stomach or your arm. And then that arm or that pad will transmit that data via Bluetooth signal to your phone. And then your phone will transmit that data to your doctor and up to 5 people of your choice. So they can confirm that your medication is being taken. Really crazy shit, right? You can look that up. Go ahead. It's patented. Potrius or something like that. So it's kind of a crazy side effect, but there's this crazy guy, right? He's like, Doc, you got to believe me. The government, they're following me around. They know exactly what I'm doing at all times of the day. And the government says, oh, Brad, don't be like that. You know the government wouldn't follow you like that. I think they're following me, Doc. I think they're following me. Brad, listen, you need to go on this medication. It'll help you. It'll help you understand. You'll take this medication. It'll go into your stomach. And then the sensor, the size of a grain of sand, will interact with your stomach acid and transmit the data of your medication and the time and location of your taking it to your armband, which will then transmit it back to your phone, and then your doctor will be able to confirm whether or not you've taken your medication, thereby proving that nobody is following you or tracking you. Oh, this is some severe doublespeak. I can see it being very useful, in fact, and you'll be able to get medical points. Going back to a social credit score, this medication system you'll get on your smartphone. Bing! You took your medication, 50 bonus points. Beep! You didn't take your medication, minus 750 bonus points. I better take my medication, get my bonus points. This is other things. And so while all of these kinds of technologies are progressing, such as this 5G connected car and the digital medicine, a lot of the times on social media, Western social media, they're trying to push a return to traditional media, where on Facebook or on Twitter, they're using Snopes, and they have these professional flaggers and things like that, and they reward media companies that pay for advertising or something like that. So you get Wall Street Journal, you get New York Times, you get all of these, blah, 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 whatever media company that you grew up with that had some credibility but had been recently bought out by probably some foreign press corporation that then replaced all the journalists with people that provide press releases, more or less, or their own spin on information delivered to them in bullet point form via Associated Press. Those are now going to be the trusted sources for social media. So I remember back in the mid-90s, I would go on to the internet to get away from the mainstream media, to get away from the government. But now that the forums and the BBSs have been successfully hijacked and then improved upon by social media, the government and the mainstream media is rushing in like fucking crazy to get as much of a foothold as a beachfront back into the public mind, so that when we go on, by we I mean people, go on to social media, go on to the internet to search for the things that we want to find, all of those things have been pre-decided by word choice searches. So you search for, X, Y, and Z. Well, there you go. A Snopes approved X, Y, and Z New York Times article will be at the top of the list, thereby retaking the independence of the internet back into the hands of social manipulators. This happened a lot of times. It happened with Jimi Hendrix, it happened with Kurt Cobain, it happened with Elvis, where some sort of new style of performance comes out. The power contributors, the power controls come out, bracket it, scoop out its brains, give it better genes, and release it back into the public. And as a result, now in Western media, we have a social credit system that's based on approval of hidden forces behind mega corporations in Silicon Valley that dictate whether or not you can say something. We can call Trump a Nazi, but if you call a trans person crazy, you lose your social credit. Because it's been decided that, of course, Trump's a Nazi, and that if you don't want to sleep with a trans woman, well, then you don't get your social credit. And moving forward with the 5G technology, your statements will affect the types of purchasing you can do. With the blockchain delivering a auditable, decentralized shopping platform, perhaps in the future, if your blockchain's attached to your phone, that will also affect your social credit score. So, at the current moment, of course, we can go out and enjoy the weather and the birds will sing. In fact, I was pissing off a few crows before I started this podcast. However, it's been decided, folks. There needs to be a social credit system installed into your phones that will affect the way you socialize, the types of jobs you can get, and will provide an immutable form of record keeping on everything you say in your life. So, if we are inheriting this type of technology, we need to be able to prepare for it, and we need to be able to understand how it can be used for and against everyone else. I myself have made some preparations for it, nothing that I'm willing to talk about right now. But if you live in the West, Britain, Australia, New Zealand, Austria, Romania, Canada, then you need to be prepared because a huge amount of social justice warrior engineers who are performing a reverse colonialism are quite gleefully prepared to tell you what and what not you can think. I'm going to take a quick break. We're going to come back, and I want to introduce some of the similar social credit systems that are going on in China. It's not so much decentralized as hyper-centralized. Stay tuned for more.
This beer is really weird. What? This is beer. This beer is really weird. It's like just weird.
All right, welcome back. This is the Chinese social credit system. So in the previous section, I was talking about how not decentralized, but how fragmented the social structure for this somewhat accidental social credit system is being deployed and adapted to and abused. In the previous segment, the Chinese social credit system is far more organized. And I don't mean this to sound like pro-Chinese, but just let's get some backgrounders. So the idea of online payments in China via QR code and smartphone has become extremely common in the past few years. 2016, $9 trillion worth of mobile payments were made. 9 trillion. It's a huge amount of money. Oh, in British, maybe it's 8 trillion. These are people spending money on their mobile phones. There's a QR code. They click. They use a application called Alipay or WeChat, and inside those two apps are tons of shopping features. Typically speaking, with an iOS phone, you'd have to download each company's app, but in China, most companies include like a sub app within one of the two main apps. It's kind of like saying with Apple, you can use GarageBand, but with Windows, you can use Audacity. A lot of these apps exist as a sub app within one of the two major apps. And you can use these QR codes to rent bicycles, to pay for taxis, to reserve restaurants, and you usually get a discount or something like that when you use it. Well, that's delicious. This is a new beer called Power Tools, an industrial arts brewing company. Well, this one's really good. Wow. Big recommend. Power Tools IPA. Which type of IPA is it? Yeah, fuck it. So in China, the amount of advances in payment systems and facial recognition technology is honestly really it's increasing at a hyper rate. So I mentioned that there were $9 trillion made in mobile payments earlier. And the facial recognition, one company I think was selling like 100,000 or 1,000,000 facial recognition cameras in a year. There's this immense net of facial recognition technology being implemented in China right now, where police officers will have glasses that are connected to a wire to their police smartphone. And if they see someone suspicious, they can take a picture of that person and send that via smartphone into the police database. And then if that face is recognized, they can see that person's online shopping activity, geolocation, and whether or not they're wanted by the police for which kind of charge or not, within seconds or minutes. Glasses that do that. Cops with, I'm not sure, of course, it being China, I'm not going to assume that every officer has 100% accessibility into this intense system. But that's what they're trying to do. That's what they're trying to do. So you can be scanned and have your hotel reservation where you're staying being displayed on a glasses HUD display by a Chinese officer. Yeah. Some of them might be cute. There are enough facial recognition cameras in China where they can do 800 million or so face recognition camera scans in a few seconds and identify people. You can be walking across an intersection and the facial recognition camera will capture your image and link it to you 1 week ago in a different location in a department store on an escalator. When you combine that with the amount of people using smartphones for QR code based payments, it soon becomes evident on a $9 trillion basis that all of this information is being sent up to the government, and the government can then track where you are, what you're buying, possibly who you're buying it from, who you are sending your money to. And then based on that, they can give you a social credit score. Congratulations. You purchased very good things at a very good time, and you said very good things about it. Now you can get a better job. Now you can get better schooling. And now your kids have more access to future education. Sorry, next person, you said the bad thing. You purchased the wrong thing. And you didn't say the right thing either. So now your employment options are restricted, and so is your child's education. Oh, by the way, this is actually happening. This is a social credit system. That 5G technology I was talking about earlier is being rolled out in China 2018, 2019, where companies like Huawei and ZTE plan to deploy 10,000 5G base stations and then deploy cell phones that are equipped. And if you remember earlier, that BMW car traveling at 150 kilometers an hour was able to process within a millisecond of latency 2.5 gigabytes of data per second. So it's a bit strange. It's not, of course, the Chinese system is better, because I was watching this YouTuber and he's saying, with with the surge in QR code payments also comes a surge in the services that are offered, and one of those surges has been bicycles. And share bicycles are supposed to be extremely popular in many Chinese locations, but at the same time, because of the business structure there, you have what company A has a company that's worth $150 million, and they released 100,000 share bicycles onto the market in city A. Well, then company B is going to go into city A and I'll just directly copy. So you get millions and millions of share bicycles that line themselves up in piles and are also stored in the meridians of streets because of the vast surge of demand and potential market opportunities. So it's not like it's all hunky dory over there in China. Of course, I'm not a propagandist over here. I'm just saying that the differences between the American system and the Chinese system is that social credit in America, it tends to err on the social side of things, and in China it tends to err on the credit side of things based on a centralized system. So, moving on. China. One of the concerns for this social credit system, 5G based, super high process. Oh, one thing I forgot to mention. Another idea of the social credit, social being America, credit being Japan, is that there are these online shopping programs that are a lot like Facebook Live, or those, those fucking millennials that get in front of the YouTube and tell you why you should think X, Y, or Z. In China, they have that same system, but instead of millennials telling you what you should think, they have millennials who are selling their stuff. Like they're doing live product demonstrations, and you can message them live and they will perform the product, and if you like it, you can buy it directly through QR code payment. Or you can listen to, in America, some 500-pound blue-haired millennial talk about why intersectionality in the forestry industry is the most important thing for now. They're both social credit systems, but one focuses on the social responsibility, the other focuses on the credit responsibility. So with the Chinese system, what I've heard, because I teach Chinese software engineers, and I'm in the industry, quote, it gives them a reason to climb society, end quote. So while the Chinese social credit system will track you where you buy stuff and when you buy stuff and how you buy stuff and how much you pay in real time, it provides everybody in China a reason to climb up in the system. And you have to say the right things to do the right things. And I agree that's not necessarily related to freedom of speech, which is my personal kind of thing. I like freedom of speech. However, with the American or the Western style of social credit systems, you don't get a financial gain. You get more or less anarchistic kudos based on the current virtue signaling habits of that time. And you might be able to garner a lot of social credit via a statement in month A, but next year, month D, your social credit might be completely revoked because of somebody who now has a different opinion than you changes the goals and decides that you're Hitler now. Same thing could happen in China. I don't know, but it seems to be a lot more centralized for the society at hand. So now, to conclude, there's these two competing systems. One system that's more or less open for the world to see and observe and witness and comment on in real time, which is the Western system, or the hidden system that is trying to provide a vast amount of people, 1.3 billion people, a network to try to improve their lives through individual commerce. Now, I don't know which one I approve of, and I'm not trying to approve of one or the other. However, what I'm saying is that these systems are coming to you. They're coming to you. I don't know where you're listening to this. You could be in rural Ireland. You could be in some sort of sewing factory, or you could be listening to this by accident. However, I'm saying that from a person that from Tokyo, from the tech perspective, from somebody who researches this for my livelihood, and who has a degree in journalism. I'm sorry, I sound like I'm virtue signaling, but somebody who, I'm not trying to promote it or demote it. What I am trying to say is these technological innovations enter our lives, whether we like them to or not. And as we get a little bit older, like me, I'm 38, it's good to know, rather than not to know, what's currently in the bag. And it's entirely possible to shrug off these movements in technology and say that will never happen. Or what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to prepare for how I am going to be using it in the future and to know what types of options are out there for use. Whether it's social credit, social American version, or credit Chinese version, your smartphones are being highly integrated into your future. And the more you use it, the more what is known about you. But of course, we can always go turn it off, go to the park, and listen to the birds sing. But when you take a picture or a short film of those birds singing, that just might affect your social credit.